Well, the jury's in, and it's as bad as I thought it was going to be on today's Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. Hi there. My name's Charles Ray Dawson. I'm an associate broker and residential sales manager of ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast episode. I do believe it was 145. Let's check real quick. Survey says, 144. That does not sound right. Hold on. Y'all hold on for a second. I need to go kill something. No, it was 144. Guess I did update that slide. So, it is probably like 2 o'clock. Yeah, it's 2 o'clock right now. And this is something I wanted to do at 11, but we had a whole bunch of stuff coming on and happening. And I have no idea why that screen decided to flick like that on my side. Hopefully you guys didn't see that on this side, but hey, let's run this out. Just that a little bit. I'm usually a little bit more organized than today, but I had an hour-long conversation about some VFW stuff, and Omar's got drill weekend, and I was talking to him about that, told him to go get his hair cut before somebody did it for him, and all sorts of good things going on over here at ProStar. So how y'all doing? Enjoying the weather? So I don't know how many of you guys are actually Diamondbacks fans and how many of you have been watching this. I've been listening to it indirectly on the radio. Turn the radio on. I like listening to baseball on the radio. It's a lot more entertaining on the radio when you can do something, just hear it in the background, as opposed to sit there and watch guys spit and scratch themselves and then occasionally throw a ball. So, all right, but hey, tough luck. Better time next year. Strange personal note. I actually moved down to Phoenix the night the Diamondbacks won the World Series. I was driving into town with all my worldly possessions in a U-Haul, towing my truck behind me, listening to the game on the radio, and was a little concerned I was going to wind up driving in one of those big city, major sports ball event riots. But hey, what I know is it's a kid from a small desert town called Tatooine. It's like good times. All right. And as the title of this episode announces, yes, the jury is in. And the jury in the big NAR case, and for you guys who weren't paying attention, there was a class action suit in the state of Missouri where a bunch of former sellers of their property got together, and whether or not they got together and found the attorney or the attorney found them after being given a chunk of money to go find people for this lawsuit, I've heard different sides, sued NAR and Keller Williams, Remax, Anywhere, or which is a big compilation, Fortune 500 company, saying that sellers were damaged because they were being forced to pay for the buyer's agent through the listing agreement, and that buyer's agent would then work against their best interest by trying to negotiate a lower price and repairs and so on and so forth. And the jury deliberated for about 2.5 hours, and they came back and they said, yeah, we can see that. So they found for the plaintiff. Now, you're going to be hearing two different numbers if you're tracking this. It was like $1.87 billion, all right, was the penalties, all right, that they decided was, needed to be levied on NAR and Keller Williams, because they were the two who didn't settle. But because it's in the state of Missouri, and this is just how laws work some days, because of what they were found guilty, they were found and penalized for in that state, the damages are trebled. That's a fancy way for saying 3. All right. So you're going to see 1.87. You're going to see bad reporters are going to say $2 billion. All right. And then you're going to see people say $5 billion. Wow. So, of course, immediately they move to appeal. All right, they're going to go through the motions. The attorneys are going to go through the motions first. They're going to try to have a mistrial declared. All right, We talked about that last week, and then they're going to appeal it, and then it's going to go back and forth and back and forth. And so, and these sellers are not getting checks tomorrow. Right? They're probably not getting checks this month. They might not get checks this year or this decade. All right. And it's not going to be for the amount that they think, because I've heard the attorneys getting 40% off the top. You're all complaining about 6% and you paid your attorney 40%? I seriously got in the wrong line of work over here, didn't I? So attorney would get 40, and then this, that, and the other thing, and then you pay out the 500,000 people who are apparently on this class action suit, and you'll probably get a check for $39.95 at the end of the day, and you can go order a cheap pizza from Domino's for that amount. So, anyways, what I found was really funny is within minutes of that court case being delivered by the jury and the plaintiffs, winning, that same attorney ran screaming up to the bench and instantly slapped down the next lawsuit, Wave 2, where they're going for those second-tier brokerages. Yeah, and I know I've said this. I don't know if I said it with the camera on, but, that's your first suit. You go for the big guys. If you win, then you start going for the little guys, and now you're just trying to get these guys to settle. Walk in the door, hey, really nice brokerage you have here. Be a shame if somebody sues you. So, in the second suit is Compass, Redfin, EXP, a couple names that you might know, and a couple local brokerages. They actually do look like they're actually looking at for one of the larger independent brokerages in the state. There was no real comments. I saw Redfin come out with a statement, and they're sort of doing a mea culpa, but we've been fighting this on our own this entire time, but evil NAR made us do it. It'll be really interesting if that turns into their defense. All right, because that's really runs close to some of the complaints I've always had about NAR. All right. If I had my druthers, I would not be a member of that association. I'm not a fan of that association. I think you guys are pretty much have figured that out by now. They have issues. I've been screaming about these issues since literally my first week of being licensed. All right. And was told, hey, forget about it, kid. What do you know? All right. And I'll be really interesting to see if that's if Redfin's public statement matches their defense and how the juries look at that. All right. Because if Redfin is sitting there, and it sounds like from reading this, all right, and this is my interpretation, asterisk, that Redfin's pretty much making the statement is like, hey, we had a problem with this the entire time because of the nature of the industry and the stranglehold NAR has on the industry. All right. If we wanted to continue to do what we wanted to do for a living, we had to play by their games, right? Because we couldn't go to a competing system. Right? Like I said, I really think that's what all the other brokers should have gone with from the get-go and let NAR hang. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a real estate agent. So, speaking of NAR, the CEO was retired, decided to resign. He was resigned this morning. That news just came out after some intensive meeting that they just emergency meeting. He has been replaced with a temporary, and I was going to print this article up, but I didn't. Temporary CEO. They were already looking for a replacement for him. His contract was going to end at the end of 2024, so they were already starting to send out look for resumes and starting to do the pre-interviewing stuff. The lady that they have in charge right now, the CEO of NAR, she comes from she was like the CEO of the Chicago Tribune. All right, a lot of people don't know NAR is not based out of Washington, D.C., like all the other organizations are. They're actually based out of Chicago. Explains a bit about their business model now, doesn't it, right? Like, seriously, a really nice brokerage you have here. It'd be a shame if somebody took you off the MLS. So, anyway, so they hired somebody else from Chicago, this lady, who's been the CEO of the Chicago Tribune. A lot of conversations about what's going on there. We'll see what pops up. All right, we'll see how that works out. But that's the big thing on the real estate side on the internet. Can NAR survive? I know there's a lot of people out there who do not want NAR to survive. There are people who have drank the Kool-Aid who says, oh no, we cannot function, if we didn't have those little blue R's on our lapel. I got one of those. Somewhere in here. I literally threw it in my desk drawer when I got it. And it's still in the plastic wrapper somewhere. Still in the plastic wrapper floating around here somewhere. It's like, I know I see those things on agents, every once in a while. And they just wear it, hoping to strike up a conversation, There you are sitting in the emergency room. You're looking at somebody and you go, hi. Now, I understand, you probably have had a very traumatic experience. I mean, with that car accident and everything, your husband wasn't wearing a seatbelt, but do you think you're going to need to sell a house anytime soon? Does that happen? I've heard stories that actually happens. All right. I was in a situation that was a lot like this, sort of this weekend where I've really felt uncomfortable. Okay. And nobody watches this video, so we just lean in. We're going to tell you a little secret. So one of our agents was handling the transaction of a piece of property for the executor of the estate. And she did a great job of helping that the executor, basically the sister, out. But she got invited to the funeral reception, celebration of life, all right? And she didn't want to go alone, so she asked me if I'd go. It's like, okay, take one for the team. So I went there, and, I'm really trying to keep low profile. I mean, I'm not even eating the food, really. You ever been in one of those things where you didn't really know the guy, the deceased, and you realize my life is a little bit smaller because I didn't know this guy because he sounded really awesome? Well, it was that situation for me. And at some point, this little shrewish lady comes up to me, and she's about this, and she's got that pinched face. And she asked me basically who I am, what am I doing there? And so I gave her a little canned response. Oh, I'm over here with, this agent, and she's, and she goes, oh, I hate realtors. I'm like, I can understand. A lot of people do. I'm not a big fan of them myself. And she starts going into this whole situation where she walked into an open house once, and the person had the audacity to try to sell her the house. I just walked into this shoe store, and next thing you know, Al Bundy came up and started to talk to me like he was at my level. So, anyways, talking the little pinched face, shrewish lady, we just had this running, rambling conversation. I'm trying to be good. I'm so polite. I am like, yes, ma'am, because, it's like, this is my game face, and my game face is cracking, and she started talking about how she was a social worker and this and that and the other thing, and how she dealt with the homeless, and she saw the impact of evil real estate agents raising house prices so regular people can't buy them. And so, it's like I'm not getting the funny red haze, but I am starting to get a little targeting device like right over her forehead and stuff like that. It's like right there. So, and I'm like, well, a lot of people wind up homeless for various reasons. I'm currently working with a lot of homeless vets right now, and she's like, "Oh, those homeless vets are all drug addicts because of what the military did to them." And I'm like, got tone. And then so I just started sitting there and explaining. And where I lost her interest in conversation is I explained to this young man I was just dealing with who's on the verge of being homeless, and no drugs. Just we have a piss poor economy right now. And then she pinched up her face and she practically called me a Trumper. She stormed away from me. Winning. So I don't know why I'm sharing that story with you, except to just maybe to let you know that some of us are well aware of the reputation real estate agents have, especially realtors. All right. Some of us are really, really annoyed that the association that was put together that was supposed to bring professionalism to this industry and create a brand that we could all be proud of wearing goofy little blue R's on our, collar has been, I don't know if it ever was the organization it kept saying they were. I don't know if they were it ever used to be that way and it just descended into this, or this is how it's always been. All right. I don't know any other NAR than the NAR I see now. All right. Why am I talking so much smack about NAR? It's like, what are they going to do? Article 15 me right now? You got enough on your plate, guys. Seriously, you got enough for your plate than to come down on me for telling you this is what you're doing wrong. All right. That'd be a great retirement program. I mean, hell, everybody else is suing the hell out of NAR. Might as well get on the gravy train. So that's what's happened. That's what's happened with that. I'm not surprised. I can't even really say I'm concerned right now about the downstream impacts of this. I know what's going to happen. We're prepped for it over here at ProStar. We've been having classes on it. My agents have been sitting there rolling their eyes because, oh yeah, it's like, we have to worry about this. It's like, yeah, you got to worry about this. And next thing you know, my phone's ringing off. Like, oh my God, I can't believe that the jury found for the plaintiffs. I'm like, yeah, I told you they were going to. But how? Well, because attorneys are really good at picking juries, and all you got to do is find 8 people who are too dumb to come up with an excuse to get out of jury duty, all right, and get them on there and say the longer you guys deliberate, the more view you miss. Did you hear about the new Oprah show tomorrow? Oh, don't worry, you're going to be stuck in jury duty for the rest of this frickin' week unless you come back and find for my defendant or find for my plaintiff or whatever. So, as an aside, if you guys ever do get that little letter in the mail saying, hey, why don't you go to jury duty? It's not a request. It's a demand. Yes, you can't sit there and try to come up with a reason why you particularly can't. And yes, it is boring. All right. And it's disruptive. And it's 2 or 3 days out of your life that you'd probably want back afterwards. But this is sort of how our system is supposed to work. All right. And if you were ever in that little box being accused of something, you want a jury of reasonably intelligent, attentive people. And of all the reasonably intelligent, attentive people all come up with reasons to get out of jury duty, you're stuck with those guys. All right. Public service announcement. Goddamn. Go out there. Be an American. Do your job. Pay your taxes. Vote once. Looking at you, Chicago. Don't vote if you're dead. Seriously looking at you, Chicago. All right. And do your jury duty. Right? I'm just having a grand old time ranting because we're going to go to the numbers. All right. Numbers are what the numbers are. All right. I know you guys aren't really sitting there going, God, Ray, just shut up and show me the numbers. That's the only reason why I talk to you. All right. But here they are for November 2nd, 2023. Actives this week are 15,198, up 340 from the previous week. Of those, 1,857 are new listings, down 79 from the previous week. Contracts for last week were 1,667 contracts, down 52. And closings last week were 1,724, wrapping up the last week of October. Coming soon to an MLS near you are 650 new listings. Our Comfort Report numbers, all right? We'll hit these and go to the next chart because that's where it starts getting interesting. Supply has risen to 58.9. So if you think 15,000 houses are a lot, it's probably because you've been paying attention for the last 5 years, but that's still not even where we're supposed to be at, all right? We're still looking about for 60 houses for sale that we should have 100 based on our population. All right? Our supply is at 71.2, all right, which is still down. We should have balanced market is 100 people looking at 100 houses, right? But instead, we have 71 people looking at 60 houses. Okay. And gives us a Comfort Report number overall for the MLS of 120.8. We are still technically in a seller's market. But let's take a look at this. This is how our neighborhoods are breaking down. Yes, everything is still falling, and we still have Maricopa, Queen Creek, Goodyear, Buckeye at the bottom. All of these houses are in a buyer's market right now, right? With Buckeye at the bottom at 78.4. All right. Our only balanced market we're showing right now is Surprise at 100 point or 102.1. All right. And they could probably lose another. If they lose this month like they last month like that they will be in a buyer's market here in a month, right? But let's keep an eye on them for that. Right, and then Peoria, Cave Creek. All right, Chandler is still the best place to be trying to sell a house right now at 173.5. Right, although they have dropped 19% month over month. Then Gilbert, Glendale, Fountain Hills, and Phoenix. All right, so there we are. 4 on the bottom, 1 balanced. All the rest of them still in the seller's market. That's how we get to the 120. So, with that being said, I'm going to take a drink. All right. So, you guys might remember the comfort chart that I drag out every once in a while to yell when things are compared. Oh, this is just like 05. This is like 06. This is just like 08. Drag the chart out to show, hey, this is what it literally was back then, and this is where we are now. All right, so let's go to our old favorite, the one we very rarely see because I haven't shown in a while. The price response to the supply and demand indexes. All right. In this particular one, once again, all right. The green line, you might have to look really close on your screen if you're sitting at this on your phone. The demand line is people who want to buy houses. The supply line is people who want to sell houses. All right. When you see green here, this means it is a seller market because demand is outpacing supply, and we can go all the way back. This is the 08 crash that everybody talks about. Now, notice professionals always call it the 07 to 09 crash. All right. There's a reason for that. And the reason for that is that we were paying attention. This is actually before the press actually paid attention in 08. All right. We all knew it was happening well before that. All right. Well, let's take a look. This pink line, they really should have done this in a darker color. This is actually average sales price per square feet. All right, that's your price. All right, people think of a crash happen, all they're thinking about is price. All right, you can see during that demand lineup, and this is going back all the way to 04. All right, we were pretty balanced here. This is at 2%. I'm always talking about houses should always appreciate out. All right, from 2001 2005, we had a balanced market. Look how tight those little numbers are compared to each other. All right, and then supply started falling because demand started rising. We hit this little crystal point right here. All right. And you can even see how they dance with each other. Okay, look. Demand goes down a little bit. Supply went up a little bit right there, you know. It's like doing the karabushka. If any of you guys know how to dance the karabushka, there's a lot of in, out, back to start kind of stuff. All right. And at some magic point, and this is all the way back in 06. All right. It was in 06 when supply suddenly passed demand. All right, that moved us into a buyer's market. All right, if you notice right here when we crossed over, okay, just as the peak started coming back down in price line, on the prices and everything like that. All right, buyer's market is still going in, but that's not a big. That's that correction kind of stuff. All right, that's the kind of correction we expect to see. All right, so. You know, and then 06, we had little drop in supply right here, raised by a little bit of demand right here, and then demand drops through the floor. All right, that demand dropping down there, all right, and being down there for that long pulled everything in. It's this bit right here of the buyer's market, which created this crash all the way to down here. All right, which wrapped up in 09. All right, if you bought in 09, 09 and 10, all right, you're doing really good right now. Problem with doing that back then is nobody was loaning money out, and that's something I want you you millennials are sitting there waiting for the crash to happen to understand. If the crash happens, there's a chance nobody's going to loan you money. All right, so unless you're sitting in cash, and if you are, God bless you. All right, but if you're not sitting in cash and you're waiting for the crash, during this time period, which was a stellar time to buy, all right, nobody could get a loan, all right, because banks weren't lending into this. This demand spike that you see that drives up here, that sort of makes that little correction, that literally kicks right there. All right, price per square foot hit this little magic floor, and then all the investors with cash started buying houses. I did the math once, all right? When you're looking at a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that you can buy for $40,000, and you can rent it out for $800 a month. Remember, kids, this is back in 2010 when you could do these things, right? All right, that $800 a month times 12 is like $9,600 a year, right? You do that kind of math and you realize you're getting a better return than bonds, and you're getting a better return than the stock market. That's what happened. That's why people suddenly realized, why the hell am I playing with the stock market? Why am I buying municipal bonds? Why am I buying T-bills when I can buy an asset and get $9,600 a year for it, for something that's going to cost me $40,000? Right? That's over 20% return. All right? So in a really nasty way, it was those investors who actually really saved us. Those investors come in, because you notice, going back to that, this demand here, all right, it started coming back in all the way back in '08. Demand started rising. We just had to go through all that supply glut. Right? So I'm always fascinated. I mean, you would think at some point people would be writing doctorates on what happened right there, right? But that demand spike that kicked up right there, right? That demand spike that kicked up right there was investors. Right, the evil investors that we're always saying bad things about. A lot of them sold here. Okay, they sold right back here. They realized, hey, this is unsustainable. They sold, buy in here. Right, which is effectively, let's look at this, selling an asset at this point just almost $200 a square foot, and then they turned around and picked up the exact same house 2 years later, 3 years later, right, for $45 a square foot. Right? Remember that weird kid who always wore a long sleeve shirt in school, in high school? Yeah, that was him. He bought your house. So that's our crash. So let's look at that. Let's compare it to what we got going on right now. For everybody out there, we're still in the green, and that's what I'm talking about. 120 on the Cromford index. Okay, demand is still outpacing supply. Here's that supply run up that we've been talking about, that I've been talking about for like the last 3 or 4 months. Right? That's this right here. And you can see demand started cutting off, and you can see where demand cuts off. I wish I could have had a chart right here for interest rates. All right. January 2022, seller's market. Right. May 2022, right here. Okay. That's when those interest rates started going, and it dropped like a rock. Okay. We actually had balance right here in December of 2022. A lot of that balance is just because, hey, demands are not there anymore because it's the holidays. Houses are still on the market because we got all that backup stuff from these, from this coming down. Right? Now we've had this year. Now we're just about to finish up 2023. We saw supply come up, we saw demand go up in the spring, just like it always does. There's a little seasonality to demand. All right, and we see supply back off as that demand ate it all up, and now it's coming back up as those houses come back on the market. Does this right here look like this right here? All right, good. You can sit there and make an argument. Oh my God, that's just a very smaller bit of this. All right, look how low supply got though. All right, when we had demand going, and notice. We cross over here, we hit alpha, right? And how high, right? And that's when you saw prices barely stop and gather out, right? Did this little thing and then drop down. Look at that time period we got there before all hell breaks loose, right? Let's take a look and compare to this. Okay, do we see a peak here in May? Do we see a sudden hit in December? That's that interest rate run up. Then people start getting in because they still need to buy houses, and we see house prices continue to go up. All right. And when do we see that second drop? Are we going to see a second drop? Is that second drop going to herald that? I don't know. Unlike here, where this demand was artificially induced because of, lender loans and liar loans and fog and mirror loans and ninja loans and all that other stuff, and a whole bunch of investors buying every little piece of property they can get, right, including mom and pop and strippers, right? We don't have that going in any of this time period here, right? Everybody who bought a house over the last 2 or 3 years, and 4 years and 5 years, and pretty much everyone since then have been very well qualified. The lenders have learned their lesson. They qualify you. You practically have to go, get a proctology exam nowadays to get a loan. So we don't have that. We also don't have more houses built than we need. In fact, we still don't have enough houses, all right? So we still have that baked into the cake. What we are going to see is we got to watch those interest rates, kids. All right. Now, those interest rates kick loose. All right. You're going to see a spike like this in demand. All right. Except it won't be investors this time. It'll be home buyers, real human beings. All right. We're going to see that sudden run up in demand right here. The post-COVID, oh my God, I do not want to live with 3 roommates. Let's go buy our own house. Let's get out of the city. Let's go out into the suburbs. That run up. We've got the 08. Okay. What happened in 2018? 2019, interest rates started dropping down really hard. That drives up demand. All right, interest rates break under 7. We used to say if it breaks under 6 and we get back into the 5s, that's going to be all hell breaking loose. I really think if we get under 7 and we are into the 6s, you're going to see demand spike. All right, because affordability issues, it's suddenly a lot easier to buy a house now. Couple fun little story caveats, all right, just to wrap this whole day up. I'm aware of a situation where a builder canceled a contract on a buyer. Happened just last month. That buyer had been under contract with the builder for 6 months, and it was 2 weeks before closing when the builder's lender denied the loan. They had 5.5 months to decide to deny that loan. Right? They had the entire paperwork ready to go. They had been approached a couple times. Hey, if you don't want to wait for that house, we can put you in this house right over here, ready to go. Close this weekend. That kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, the loan got denied. Why did the loan get denied? Because that buyer had a 6% interest rate. Right? The new interest rate that they eventually had to finagle to still close on that house, not with the builder's lender, like 7.25%, and they paid $17,000 in points to buy that sucker down. All right. Builder made a decision, sat there and looked at it. This is my humble opinion. Sat there, took a look at it and said, we can cancel this contract with this kid at 6%, and we can turn around and sell the exact same house and loan money out at 7.5%, 7.25%, whatever we want to do. Money in the bank. I think that's what that builder did. I'm not mentioning the builder. So that's interesting. One of my agents came up and said that he saw this entire thing saying that builders were having a really bad quarter. Maybe they did, especially if they're pulling this kind of stuff. That does sort of look like the kind of things builders would do when the bottom line's starting to get a little rickety. I remember back there in 08, we had builders closing just shutting their doors. Houses half completed, lots bulldozed, but not, just don't stop. Everything happened in a day. You'd sit there Thursday night thinking you're closing and get your new keys tomorrow, and you're coming Friday morning and find out that the builder went under. Is that going to happen? Probably not. All right. Builders aren't doing the big freaking multi-complex. All right. They're subdividing the land. They're getting it ready to go. They don't start on that until they have a contract on it. All right. Now, maybe they finance themselves and they got a lot of leverage to go doing that. I'm a little concerned about those payments and kind of stuff, but you almost had the sale there, dude. And then you decided to cut it 2 weeks out. I guess technically they did get the sale because they still got the money out of it. It's just not on their loan. Yeah, so we got that little bit of information floating around. There was one other thing I wanted to cover in all this great news of this week, but I'm looking at it. It's 34 minutes and 4 seconds on the recorder. So, last few months of the year, this is where everything slows up. Things are going to be really, really seasonal. Expect, the numbers that I show you are going to be, all right, see supply go up. we might hit balance here. We'll probably hit balance. I would not be surprised if we hit balance, by the end of the year. Right? Mostly because people keep wanting to put houses on the market. Got a call yesterday from a gentleman. We've been talking since this time last year. He has finally decided to pull the trigger. All right. Of course, what does he want? He wants the price I quoted him this time last year. All right. He wants the ease of selling this time last year. All right. We had to have a little come to Jesus moment with him. This is what happens when you don't pay attention. All right. When I have a podcast and I'm telling you what the market is every freaking week, if you don't pay attention to that, you're going to be surprised if you don't talk to me for between the years. Sound good? All right. Just pay attention to your kids and pets around the water. All right. Don't drive into anything flooded. Okay. And of course, always work your circles. All right. Especially the circles you can impact and have influence on. All right. Not the stuff out there in the world that you really doesn't ultimately affect you and you can have no effect on it. All right. Just boop. Let it go. In with the love, out with the jive. Akuma Matata. You guys all have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you all later.